Ever since the end of the CRT era, people have had a hard time getting their original classic game consoles working on flat-screen TVs. While there are good solutions out there, most are expensive, complicated, and some are just plain terrible. Now, there's finally one that works exactly as advertised, and all that's required is plugging it in and playing your game. Classic consoles were designed to be used with CRTs and their analog inputs. If you could still find a CRT and have the room for it, simply plug in your console and start gaming with whatever cables you already own. Sure, some signals are better than others, but if you're just getting started, you could just use whatever you've already got and have a great experience. Unfortunately, as soon as you start trying to use classic consoles on flat-screen TVs, many problems start to pop up. There's great solutions out there for perfectionists who want a really high-end signal from their classic console, and there's even other great beginner solutions for people looking to start out building a classic gaming setup. But what if you don't need a full setup? What if you don't really care about spending a ton of money to chase a perfect signal? What if you just want to plug something into your classic game consoles and be able to play them on flat screens without ruining the experience? Well, thanks to a collaboration between RetroTINK creator Mike Chi and Retro Gaming Cables, for the first time ever, you could do exactly that. They've teamed up to release HDMI cables for classic consoles called the Retro Analog to Digital 2x, or RAD2x. These cables, in most cases, convert RGB, which is the highest quality video signal classic consoles output, to a digital 480p signal that preserves the original gaming experience and is compatible with consoles from all regions worldwide. I'd like to take a moment to explain why the RAD2x is able to preserve the classic gaming experience, and then show examples of it in action. Classic game consoles output a unique progressive scan signal nicknamed 240p. Unfortunately, most TVs and scalers interpret this signal as a 480 interlaced TV signal, and that introduces a few problems. First, the game signal is scaled smoothly, which is what you'd want for TV or movies. This is an example of the opposite of that. This is low-res footage of me being scaled the way that you would want a video game scaled. Completely the opposite. Next, the progressive scan signal is treated as interlaced, which is far more damaging to the overall experience. Unfortunately, every TV I've seen processes a video game's composite video signal as interlaced, meaning you can't just plug in your consoles with the cables it came with and expect to have a decent experience. If you do, you'll end up with a soft, flickery image that really changes the way the games look, and in my opinion, produces a flicker that gives me a headache. There's even some snake oil solutions out there that claim to be designed for consoles, and while they do look sharp on still screens, there's still a bad blur during movement. The RAD2x is the first plug-and-play retro gaming cable on the market without this problem. The 240p signal was processed correctly as progressive scan, which results in smooth, flicker-free scrolling. Any other blur you might see is a result of your TV's panel, and certainly not as bad as the blur you might see from a bad scaler. Overall, the RAD2x does a great job preserving the original look and feel of classic consoles. I'll have a much more detailed video on latency soon, but in the context of retro gaming, lag is any amount of time that's added between the console's video output and the amount of time it takes for that image to appear on screen. Lag really didn't exist with CRTs, but it's an issue with all flat screens. First, you can reduce the lag on the TV itself by setting it to game mode, and there's plenty of info out there on which TVs are both affordable and have low lag. Even after configuring your TV, you'll still need to deal with whatever lag the analog to digital scaling solution adds. Almost all gaming scalers or cables on the market today add some sort of lag to the signal, and every bit that's added takes away from the overall experience. Some are worse than others, and once again, even those cables that are supposedly designed for classic consoles add more than should be acceptable. Keep in mind that your average TV has 2 to 3 frames of lag. Really good TVs have about 1 frame of lag, and I've seen plenty of TVs have 4 or 5 frames of lag even in game mode. That means if you use any of these junky solutions on your average TV, you're looking at a minimum of 5 frames of lag and probably more. Once again, the RAD2x cables have us covered, adding no additional lag to the output. That means not only are these the first plug-and-play HDMI cables that process the signal correctly, they're the first to not add any lag either, meaning all you have to worry about is whatever latency your TV has. The 2x in the RAD2x's name refers to the doubling of the original console signal to 480p. This results in an HDMI signal compatible with all devices, but how it actually looks in person depends on your TV. See, all flat screens stretch whatever signal they receive to the native resolution of the panel, and some do a better job than others. I tried my best to get this video looking as close to what you would actually see in real life as possible, but a good example would be I tried the RAD2x on my cheap LCD TV, and it looked good, certainly better than all the competition. Then I tried it on my OLED and it looked pretty darn good, which you'd expect. But then I tried it on my old Panasonic Plasma and it looked phenomenal, and that TV was kind of known for doing a great job with 480p. So overall, I would expect performance ranging between good and really good. Here's a completely stock, later model Super Nintendo, one of the ones that are known for good video quality output. I think this is one of the best examples of how good these cables can look with no modification done to the console. Just buy the cable, plug it in, and have a great looking signal. Older SNES consoles will be a bit softer, but you'll see the same results with even the best scaling solutions. It's a fault of the console, not the cables. Most Genesis consoles will look great, and if you've installed any hardware enhancements such as the triple bypass, it'll look awesome. Please note that some Genesis consoles output interference nicknamed jail bars that are most noticeable against blue backgrounds. Check out the Genesis section of the website for more info on this. You'll also notice that some Genesis games have a colored border around the image. This was the overscan area that was usually not visible on CRTs, but unless you use more complicated scalers, there's no way to get rid of it on flat screens. Another thing to note is games that switch to a 480i mode, such as Sonic 2's split screen mode, are handled well and the switching is very quick. Sega Master System consoles also work with the cables, and image quality will vary depending on the individual console. Unfortunately, this is just something you'll have to deal with when using 30-year-old consoles with modern technology, but overall, SMS should still look good. There's a Saturn version of the cable as well, and this is a great time to show off another feature. Much like Mike's RetroTINK 2X, these cables offer a switch that turns on a smoothing feature. I really don't like how this feature looks on 2D games, but in my opinion, it can improve the look of some early 3D games. This is really just preference though, so I suggest toggling it in different situations and see what looks best to your eyes on your TV. There's also a PlayStation version of the cable, and it's the only one that requires USB power during use, as there's not enough amperage on the PlayStation's output connector to power the cable. When using the RAD2x on a PlayStation, it seems you're able to switch between resolutions with very little delay. That means games that have 240p gameplay and 480i menus can be played pretty smoothly, without waiting a long time for your TV or capture card to adjust to the new resolution every time you enter or exit a menu. You could also use this cable on a PlayStation 2, and even power it using the front USB port. Please keep in mind that the RAD2x doesn't support 480p, so you'll definitely still want to hold on to your component video cables for any of the games in the PS2's library that supports native 480p output. The RAD2x uses a deinterlacing method called Bob deinterlacing to get the signal to 480p, as this won't add any lag to the output. This method of deinterlacing can be a bit flickery, and since the majority of PS2 games are 480i, this is where you'll run into it the most. In my opinion, this is where the filter switch is the most useful, as I really feel like it smooths out the Bob deinterlacing to make it look better on flat screens. Overall, due to the fact that you get the advantage of the smoothing filter, as well as the really fast transition between 240p and 480i, I'd actually recommend these for use on flat screen over a component video solution. I would still recommend getting a good set of component video cables though, just so you can take advantage of all the 480p games in the library. I've saved the N64 for last because this is the perfect place to show off a pretty incredible feature of the RAD2x's Nintendo multi-out cable: RGB auto detection. That means this cable will auto detect if an RGB signal is present, and if not, it'll default to the composite video output. That makes this one cable 100% compatible with every single console that shipped with a SNES-style multi-out from all regions worldwide. A pretty lucky bonus is the N64's composite video output, combined with the soft 3D graphics, look good enough where I think you'll be happy with the overall experience, and once again, no lag is added and the image is processed correctly. As with the other cables, there's a filter switch that, in my opinion, works best on the N64 and other 3D graphics, and especially to smooth out composite video. But with the RGB auto detection, if your N64 is modded, it'll automatically look like this. On some N64 models, an RGB mod is cheap and easy, but others not so much. The bottom line with the RAD2x is it doesn't matter. Just buy this one cable and you're covered for all scenarios. And yes, the smoothing filter also works in RGB mode. Let's compare that to Eon's Super 64, a device that's more than twice the price of the RAD2x, only works in S-video mode, and only fits in N64s. And that's the last thing to mention about the RAD2x's Nintendo multi-out version. It'll work on every version of the N64, Super Nintendo, GameCube, and even the AV Famicom. That also includes SNES Minis, which came from the factory with RGB disabled, but can be enabled with a cheap and easy mod. Now, these aren't really being marketed as GameCube cables because there's other plug-and-play solutions out there that allow you to access all of the resolutions the GameCube supports, and the RAD2x once again only supports 240p and 480i. Also, NTSC GameCubes don't output RGB, only composite video, so you'd never be able to get past that quality of a signal. Now, these might be a cool choice for PAL GameCube users though, as those consoles will output RGB, and this might be a good choice for people that have PAL GameCubes without the digital output port, or maybe you just want a cheap way to use the Game Boy interface software on a flat screen TV. The point is, the Nintendo version of the RAD2x is fairly priced and compatible with every single console that shipped with a Nintendo-style multi-out on the back. I wonder what the competition has to say about that. In conclusion, the RAD2x cables are by far the best beginner option for using original consoles on flat-screen TVs. Now, are these the best scalers on the market? No, but that's absolutely not the point. These cables were designed to preserve the original gaming experience, be simple to use, and affordable. And at just around $50 at launch day, they absolutely accomplished that. And maybe these things will end up being your stepping stone to buying some crazy RGB setup, or maybe your TV will scale the image perfectly and these will be all you ever need. Just make sure to stay away from those wannabe solutions and only buy directly from retro gaming cables or their official partners. If you have to take just one thing away from this video, let it be this. The RAD2x cables were designed to preserve and honor the original classic gaming experience, and those other crappy cables were just designed to take your money. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw here, please consider signing up for one of the support services such as Patreon or Subscribestar, and of course, subscribe to the channel and check out the other videos, as well as a weekly podcast that keeps everybody in the loop of everything going on in the retro gaming scene. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.